We covered 4 major spiritual topics. The Lord gave us a very interesting and important code. At sight, people may not discover it, but if you carefully meditate on it, you will discover some astonishing messages. This is a genealogy of people. There are 3 major genealogies in the first part of Genesis: Adam, Noah, and Shem. But most of people don't like reading this genealogy in the Bible, which leads them into sleeping. Usually they skip it. But we are different, because we know that they provide us a lot of useful and spiritual information. But it is a little complicated to understand. However, I will guide you into a pleasant journey, reminding you of nursery school math class. Let's begin with Adam's lines. Open your Bible to Genesis chapter 5 and quickly go through it. Now take the part about Adam, verse 3 to 5. What information do you get from it? First, his name, Adam, and his age at the birth of his first son, 130 years old. Then his remaining life, 180 years. And again, his age at his death, 930 years old. This is the formula of this genealogy. Most generations have the same information. Isn't it interesting? This is the genealogy from Adam to Noah, a total of 10 generations. Why did the Lord give us this information? Can you guess? Why? Just for comfort of sleep? Many people fall asleep when they read this part within 5 minutes. Let's see what information we can get. Seth was 105 years old when he had his first son Enosh, and Seth died at the age 912. Enosh was 90 when he had his first son Kenan, and Enosh died at 905. Kenan was 70 when he had his son Mahalalel, and died at 910. Mahalalel was 65 when he had his son Jared, and died at 895. Jared was 162 when he had his son Enoch, and died at 962 years old. Enoch was 65 when he had his son Methuselah, and died at 365 years old. Methuselah was 187 when he had his son Lamech, and died at 969. Lamech was 182 when he had his son Noah, and died at 777. Noah was 500 years old when he got his sons, and died at 950. I will be showing you later who was born when Noah was 500 years old. Now let's try to earn some spiritual information. You can see that the average life expectancy at this time was 900 years, but only 2 people are way below that average. Particularly Enoch, he only lived for 365 years. Why is this? Because Enoch never died. Instead, he was just taken up into heaven by God. So his life on earth was very short. Actually, it's not very short, but compared to the other people at the time. The other one is Lamech, who was the father of Noah. He lived 777 years. 3 plus 7, God's number. Perfect God's number. For more information on this, we need to do a little calculation. Now it's math class. When Enosh was born, how old was Adam? How do you compute it? Enosh was born when Seth was 105, and Seth was born when Adam was 130. Hence, we add 105 to 130, which equals 235, Adam's age at Enosh's birth. Are you following? Here we have a formula to compute an age in the diagram. Any age of each row equals to the addition of all numbers between the left end of the row and the bottom end of the column. With this formula, you get all the numbers. A question for you. When did Adam die? He died after Lamech's birth and before Noah's birth. What does this tell us? Lamech had lived together with Adam for 56 years. Isn't it interesting? Who is Adam? He was created by God and lived in Eden and lost his sons, Abel and Cain, and experienced the fall of man, Babel Tower, etc. He could talk to Lamech in person about everything he had experienced. Oh, imagine it. Wonderful. Lamech must have been excited when he heard everything from Adam. Then Lamech could teach Noah what he had learned from Adam. This is the secret to how Moses was able to write the stories of Genesis. Are you following? Do you agree? That's why Genesis is not a legend, but a fact, as I was saying. Now it's time to get back to the question, who was born when Noah was 500 years old? Many people think it's Shem, because they consider Shem as Noah's first son. Is that true? If you go through Genesis, you can easily find the answer. No. I'm going to prove it with only 3 passages from Genesis. The first one is chapter 5, verse 32, saying, After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It seems like Shem was born when Noah was 500 years. This is a trap. Next, chapter 7, verse 11 states that Noah was 600 years old at the start of the flood. Keep this in mind and see chapter 11, verse 10. It says that 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. How old was Noah when Shem was 100 years old? Noah was 602 because he was 600 years old at the start of the flood. Shem was 98 years old at the start of the flood, while Noah was 600. What is the gap between them? In other words, when was Shem born? 600 minus 98 is 502. Of course, according to the method of counting age in ancient Israel, it might have been 501. Anyway, it is not 500. Hence, we can presume that Shem is not the first son. Who is that first? Could it be Japheth? We need to double check with the Logos. Look at the chapter 10, 21. Stating that sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. Here we can come to a conclusion on the order of the sons. Japheth was born at 500 years of Noah's life, and Ham can be the second unless he is the twin of Japheth or Shem. Physically, it's not possible. So Ham should be the last. Here we have an issue. This is from the NIV translation. But in the other translations, such as New American Standard Bible, the older brother of Japheth, means Shem is older. These two translations are opposite to each other. Both are thought-for-thought translations. Now we need to read a word-to-word translation. Which one? Yes, KJV. In KJV, the brother of Japheth, the elder, which seems to support NIV's interpretation. In conclusion, the order is Japheth, Shem, and Ham. But remember that this is not truth, but the most likely possibility. From a spiritual perspective, we can receive another important message from this picture, the flood. All of Noah's ancestors died before the flood. Only Methuselah lived till the year of the flood. I presume that he died just before the flood, because God didn't want to kill any of the first sons, his possession. The first sons are God's possessions. Why did Lamech die at 777 years old, which was much less than the average life expectancy of 900 at his time? Because he had to die naturally before the flood. Do you know when the flood happened? Guess. Many archaeologists have tried to find the answer, but so far no one can confirm the exact year. But biblically, we can confirm it through this picture. How? Add all the left-hand numbers of rows from Adam to Lamech, from 130 to 182, then add 600 for Noah. This comes to year of the flood. What is it? It is 1656 years after Adam's creation. We actually do have some more information. People started calling on the name of the Lord at Enosh. Cain and Abel are not included in this genealogy. Seth was born in Adam's image, hence God's image, stated in Genesis chapter 5:3. Enoch was taken into heaven by the Lord, as of Genesis chapter 5, verse 24. There are some very interesting information in this picture. It is about the genealogy of Noah. Noah had 3 sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham. Here we first go with Japheth's line. He had 7 sons, Gomer had 3 sons, and Javan had 4 sons. How many generations were there? Yes, 3 generations of Japheth. How many clans? 14 clans. Remember this number. In Ham's line, how many generations were there? Yes, 4 generations. Ham had 4 sons, Cush had 6 sons, Mizraim had 7 sons, and Canaan had 11 sons. Ramah had 2 sons. How many clans? 30 clans. In Shem's line, how many generations were there? 6 generations. Shem had 5 sons, Aram had 4 sons, Arphaxad had 1 son, and Joktan had 13 sons. How many clans? Yes, 26 clans. Look at the sons of Shem. 4 sons out of 5 were big countries: Elam, Ashur, Lud, and Aram. But Arphaxad could not grow into a big one. God had chosen Abraham from the smallest one. This is an order of creation. Some names are already acquainted to us. Canaan is a son of Ham. Here it is very interesting that Canaan was cursed by his grandfather Noah. Genesis chapter 9, verse 26, may Canaan be the slave of the Shem instead of Ham. Because of this, some scholars claim that Canaan was not born of Ham. Later they were included. But we don't have any evidence of it from the Bible. We don't know for sure. As per chapter 10, Canaan is a son of Ham. Egyptians are from Mizraim, and Philistines are from Ham. Sidon, Hittites, Amorites, etc. are also from Ham. Ham had a closer relationship with Israel than Japheth. Here there is an interesting piece of data. The total number of clans, what is the number? 14 plus 30 plus 26 is 70. Is it a coincidence? Spiritually, 70 was used in several places. Jacob's family entering Egypt was 70. And the number of elders in the desert was also 70 in Exodus chapter 24 verse 9 and Numbers chapter 11 verse 24. This 70 indicates the whole. So we can say that this genealogy represents mankind and all the nations of that time. Now I guess you are an expert of a genealogy diagram. This is the genealogy diagram of Shem, as taken from Genesis chapter 11. I'm going to put in an additional row for Noah. Have a look at the length of the bar. Isn't it interesting? Noah lived longer than Abraham. They lived together for 58 years. Can you imagine what had happened to them? Noah would have told Abraham about the flood and creation and the fall of man, etc., what he had heard from his father Lamech. How wonderful it would have been. Abraham had to be ecstatic. There is another interesting age from the diagram of Adam's line. What was the average age of having the first son? Do you remember? Go back to it and check. It was approximately 90 years old. What is it in Shem's line? The 30s. It became much younger. This is a very interesting chronicle. Do you know when Jacob and his family entered Egypt? Biblically, we can compute it like we did with the chronicle of the flood. Add the numbers on left hand of rows from Arphaxad to Isaac and add 130 for Jacob. It comes to 580. Add this to 1658, that was Arphaxad's year of birth. It equals to 2238. This is the year when Jacob entered Egypt. This is not archaeological but the biblical. Here there is a variance because of the different stories about Abraham's birth from Acts chapter 7 verse 4. In the case of Acts, Abraham was born in the 130th year of Terah. This is around 60 years later than another story. But here we consider only Genesis chapter 10. We consider 2238 years after Adam's birth as the year they entered Egypt. In connection to this, Abraham was born 1948 years after the creation, and Isaac 2048 years after, and Jacob 2108 years later. Don't be too keen about these years because it's just a reference, it's not truth. It is astonishing that Abraham died 35 years earlier than Shem. Isn't it surprising? Have you ever thought that Shem lived longer than Abraham? So did Shelah and Eber. But Isaac lived longer than all his fathers. Then after Isaac's death, Jacob entered Egypt. This seems to be spiritually the same logic as that of the flood that happened after all of Noah's fathers died. In those days, the first son usually inherited his father, but Arphaxad is not the first son of Shem, he was the third. Why? It might have followed the story of Seth, the third son of Adam. Today, what is the average life expectancy? Here you can see that it started decreasing from 600 years to 400 years to 200 years and then to the 100 years. Of course, in the previous diagram of Adam, it was in the 900 years. Finally, during Joseph's age, it became close to the age of 120 years as stated in Genesis chapter 6 verse 3. From a generation perspective, there are two patterns from Adam to David. Of course, we have an assumption that not a single generation has been missed out. The number of generations from Adam to Shem is 11. From Arphaxad to Jacob, 11. And from Judah to David, again 11. These 11 generations repeat from Adam to David. Isn't it interesting? From a different angle, the number of generations from Adam to Noah is 10. From Shem to Abraham is another 10. And from Isaac to Jesse is 12. And David. 10, 10, 12, 1 generations. Which do you prefer? I prefer the later. This is about the chosen Abraham and Jacob, Israel. Please meditate on these items. Thank you for listening.